Okay, welcome everybody to our fifth episode, Investing Passively in US Multifamily Show. For those new tuning in, I'm your host, Jefferson Ortiz, and with my co-host, Jon Ortiz. What we do is we partner up with passive investors to acquire large multifamily properties and help our partners get double-digit returns. Our main focus is in the Sun Belt region and expanding out to the Midwest. In today's episode, we have a very special guest with us today here. So we have Ed Modzel, the founder and managing partner of Gimme Shelter Equity. Ed is a commercial real estate entrepreneur specializing in multifamily real estate syndication. Ed has also served in the US Navy. Thank you for your service, Ed. Ed is also a husband, a father, a grandfather. Not only that, but Ed has a very impressive track record as a general partner and key principal on over 1,560 units across the Southeast, Midwest, and Texas. Ed has successfully sold or gone full cycle on 7 assets consisting of 879 units. In addition to his real estate expertise, Ed is also a mentor. He also hosts a weekly online CRA underwriting workshop and a monthly life meetup in Long Island, New York. So without further ado, welcome so much, Ed. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. And Ed, so we'll just kind of get started. If you want to just tell the audience a little bit, I know I just give a little bit of background on yourself, but if you want to just give them maybe a deeper, broader description of yourself, your background, and so on.
Yeah, sure. So, after I got out of the Navy, my wife and I, we had just been married, and that was, 1979, 1980. I started investing in real estate on a part-time basis. And my first property was a 5-family. And, we did that over the next 35 years, getting small properties like that and on a part-time basis. It wasn't that many, maybe 20 properties over that time. And then one day I'm sitting in the office and I had a career in television in New York City on the technical side. And, one day I just said, you know what, I just turned 60 and I don't really have enough funds to retire on, comfortably in the United States. I'd have to go to some other, third world country or something,
Wow.
So I got into, I quit my job and got into real estate full time and started flipping. Then, that didn't do so well. So then I got into the multifamily, and that was, 6 years ago.
Wow, that's very impressive. And what's interesting is that you've been able to do all that in 6 years. Like that is, most people don't even acquire 100 units in their whole career. You've done this much in 6 years.
Yeah, well, I felt I had some time, I had to make up for it, right? Getting in the game late.
Fair enough. Now, let me ask you, Ed, you mentioned, you acquired some smaller multifamilies throughout that journey. Were they all multifamily? And then the other follow-up question, was it in New York?
Yeah, they were all in New York, and the 5-family was the largest. The next largest 3, 2, and all, pretty much the rest were single families.
The rest were single families.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. In New York, that's really impressive because I know New York's a bit of a tough market when it comes to, landlord, tenant, landlord rules.
Well, I was in Orange County, New York, which is just northwest of New York City. And when you get out to the more rural areas, those landlord-tenant laws, get a little looser there. So back then it was pretty landlord-friendly where I was.
That's really interesting. I actually had one of our partners, Prashant, had mentioned to me something similar. Like upstate is a little bit different than like New York State. So that's really interesting. Very interesting. And now, how was your experience managing those properties? I know they're smaller properties, so you do have a property management, I imagine, but then you're still kind of on top of, or did you manage yourself?
I didn't have a property management company. We managed them, me and my wife. And, that's one of the reasons why investing passively is a lot better. You don't have to worry about the property management. So it wasn't one of the fun part of the jobs, that I
I can
had.
I can imagine. I can imagine because yeah, usually either you will manage it yourself or you'll have your property manager, but the properties are so small that because of the income that it generates, it doesn't really leave a lot of room for like
Right.
like the bigger properties, right, where you have your on-site manager. So okay, no, that's really interesting. Now, what I wanted to talk about a little bit, Ed, is about your previous career. And how you see that helped you when getting into the multifamily space as a chief engineer. And yeah, tell us a little bit about chief engineer of a 10-time Emmy Award-winning TV show in New York. Tell us a little bit about that. I know it's a little bit different than real estate, but I definitely want to learn about that.
Well, I would say I'm a troubleshooter, and I learned in the Navy, advanced electronics program, which kind of parlayed into the, I went from weapon systems into television, and then multifamily. So yeah, I'm a good troubleshooter. If there's a problem, I'll figure out how to solve it. So that was helpful.
Wow, that's
And
it.
that I was in the service industry all my life, and when you're in multifamily, you're basically in the service industry too.
Absolutely, absolutely. And something you just touched on, something that I was just going to touch on. Uh, Again, your experience in the Army, how do you feel like that
Navy,
relates
Navy.
to? Sorry, the Navy. Sorry, the Navy. In the Navy, how do you feel like that relates to multifamily? I know there's a lot of leadership skills. There's a lot of teamwork skills. Like, do you find there's a lot of skills that you can use in the multifamily space?
Well, I think the Navy has really helped discipline me as far as systems and multifamily and investing is really all about systems, being very systematic approach. Yeah, so that helped me out a lot.
Wow. Yeah, I can definitely imagine, and I'm sure teamwork as well, right? Working with a team,
Yeah.
and then working with a team in the syndication multifamily space is also very similar. No, that's really good. And then, as you transition to the multifamily space, like at the larger scale, what was your first bigger deal that you did? Tell us a little bit about that. Like, I know 5 units was the one you did, when you were working on small, and then when you went bigger, what was the first? Tell us a little bit about that deal.
Yeah, the first deal I did was a 40 unit in Atlanta. So,
Nice.
I did a couple of limited partnerships first, like 6 years ago, and then I got the bug, and I went in actively. So that was the first deal, a 40 unit, and actually, you mentioned Prashant. That's where I met him. He came to my first meetup that I had,
Oh,
and
okay.
then invested in that deal with me. And it was more like a flip, because we only owned it 17 months, but we made incredible returns. It was 139% return, in that
Wow.
time. So we bought it for like 30 a door and sold it for 60 a door. And it
Wow.
sold a couple more times since then.
Oh
uh,
my. Wow. That's incredible. That's really incredible. That's a home run for your first deal. And
yeah,
I feel like for most people, if that first big large deal doesn't go as planned, most people will
yeah,
give up. If it goes good, then you continue on. Like, I've seen that a lot in
that's
operators.
very true, very true. And that's why, to ensure that success, uh, I I did what I don't recommend to anybody else, but my wife and I actually moved down to the property and lived on the property for supposed to be 9 months, turned into 17 months, and we made sure, we had to fire two property management companies, and then they each lasted like 6 months, and then after that, for the last 6 months, we managed it ourselves, and would I do it again? No, but I sure learned a lot, and that's experience that we learned the hard way, and no property manager now can pull the wool over my eyes, because I pretty much, all know all the tricks in the book about that.
Wow, that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. And talk about taking care of your investors and making sure your first deal goes as planned. Like you actually went to live at the property. I've thought about going and living where the property is, not alone living in the property. That's really interesting. And I'm sure you got to see what was really going on. What were the troubled tenants? What were the property managers?
Not a great property. Like you've heard of it was probably a C minus. I would definitely call it a C minus property.
Oh wow. Okay, so definitely wasn't a C class in a B area.
Yeah, we didn't have a swimming pool and all that.
Wow. Okay. Nice. Now I know something that's very common. Like a lot of our listeners are in Canada, and they may not be as familiar with like a 1031 exchange, for instance. I'm wondering if you've 1031 exchanged any of your properties that you've sold, and just tell the listeners a little bit about what the 1031 exchange is for Canadian folks that may not be familiar with it.
We've not done any 1031 exchanges upon selling. We've brought in a couple 1031s into our deal, but actually selling one and using a 1031 is somewhat difficult because you have to get pretty much the majority of the investors to go along with that exchange, and that's the challenge. So not many people do that.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting that you mentioned that. I actually just talked to an investor not long ago who was possibly doing a 1031 exchange and wanted to invest some of those proceeds into a project, right? So I think that's a huge opportunity that, again, folks in Canada don't have access to, which is maybe you're raising for a deal and you need X amount of money, and somebody just 1031, or they're going 1031 into your deal. I feel like that's a huge opportunity to find those investors that are in that position. Yeah,
for sure.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. Okay, and Ed, in terms of multifamily syndication, a lot of our listeners are Canadian and are passive investors. What are some of the benefits of investing as a passive? I know you mentioned it, and I think you mentioned you started as a limited partner, as a passive investor. How do you think that transition into you as a general partner? Because I know there's a lot of folks that start that way, where they invest as a limited partner. How do you think like those skills shifted to when you became an active general partner?
Well, all right, let me just set this up a little bit. So I've invested in 29 syndications as a limited partner. Wow. And 22 as a general partner. And of course, they overlap. So every one of my general partner deals, I'm also a limited partner on. Okay. How do I think it helps? Well, as you mentioned, I do coach a lot of people. And if somebody has a limited partnership, I encourage them, if they do want to become active at some point, to learn everything they can about that limited partnership, as if they were a general partner. And that allows you to go to meetup groups and really, communicate with other investors. So I would encourage my students to learn about their own limited partnership. I'd start asking them questions. Hey, who's your property manager? Oh, geez, I don't know. Well, you should know,
Yeah, of course.
Maybe you should know, especially if you want to become active at some point. But here's the way I look at it too, as far as active and passive. If you have a great income, like you're a business owner, you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, anything like that, and you like your job, it's better to just invest passively, because becoming active is really a lot of work. And the word active is, I do it full time, and I have 2 full-time employees. So yeah, there's a lot going into that.
Wow, absolutely. And if you don't want to move into the properties itself, you should definitely invest passively.
Yeah.
No. You nailed on some really good points because a lot of times, limited partners or people that are, like you said, like professional, busy professionals, they ask like, well, what if I want to get more involved? And there's always a conversation that we have is that it is a full-time job for majority of the syndicators or the operators. It is a full-time job. This is not like a side gig that they're doing. Like this is their full-time job. This is a full-time job, like to say the least, right? You're not only managing the property management, but you're managing the asset management itself. You're a part of the asset management for the most part. So it is, like you said, a full-time job. And if you like your job and you don't want to quit that job, why not invest passively? I think it's all about it. Being investors is the big key there, right? Like you want to be an investor, whether active or passive. Okay.
Yeah.
Now tell us a little bit about your roles. I know obviously you're a general partner and also key principal on some properties. Tell us a little bit about what are some of the difference. When do you decide to be a key principal versus a general partner, or obviously they might be the same in some cases. Tell us how you choose, like which ones you just kind of want to be just a key principal for, and which ones you want to be more active with, or tell us a little bit of your roles in the team, to say the least.
Right. So, out of the 22 deals that I'm a GP in, I'm also a loan guarantor on 16 of them. Now, the word KP gets used in a few different ways. That's why I like to use the word loan guarantor. A key principal, to some people means the loan guarantor. To other people, it means anybody, really managing the deal. So, I'm very active on all of my properties. I'm on all the asset management meetings. And like I said, I'm a loan guarantor on like 16 of them.
Perfect. I like that you said loan guarantee. Like I like that you use that phrase rather than a key principal, right? A lot of our listeners might not know about those, so it's great that you pointed out the difference between the two. Now, it's something that we wanted to talk, and of course, you have a lot of experience in this. How important is it to work with a team that has either a track record or has a strong skills when it comes to asset management? I know a lot of folks may focus on closing, but how important is asset management? Not only obviously get the deal to the finish line, but actually repositioning and doing the asset. How important is that, especially in today's DNA?
Yeah, it's everything, right? So, the first two deals I got in, I wish I knew more. They weren't the best deals, but what did I know? One of the deals lost money. The other deal, we barely made money. Every other deal I was in after that made money, but those first two limited partnerships didn't make money. Now, the two guys running the company, they've been in the business a long time. One was they were both commercial brokers before they went into syndication. But the big problem there, and I didn't know it at the time, is, they're from New York, and one of the deals was in Alabama, and the other deal was in South Carolina. They didn't really have any boots on the ground. They're managing it from afar. And, one of them was a very heavy lift, meaning it was a gut renovation of a 346 unit. And, dealing with contractors and such like that, you can't do that from afar. You need somebody that goes there all the time, or even boots on the ground. So that's a couple of things I learned there. And that is, how to vet out, good sponsors or operators. I like to call them operators. I like operators that live close to where they're working. So for instance, I live in New York, and I have deals in 8 different states. but we also have GPs on the team that live in those areas. So I'm going to be moving to North Carolina, at the end of this year,
Oh,
so I could
nice.
be in the market where I want to, invest. I have about 7 properties in North Carolina, and that's where I want to continue, looking for properties. I'm not going to spread out like I used to. I'm going to kind of stay in one area, which means a
Wow.
little bit slower growth, perhaps, but that's okay.
No, I totally agree with you, and that's really interesting. Whereabouts in North Carolina are you thinking?
Greensboro, because it's in the middle of my 5 markets, so right
That
smack in the middle.
No, that's really interesting because I think I might have mentioned this to you if I haven't. We are actually in the same plan to move to North Carolina. We
Oh
were
wow.
thinking we were thinking more in Charlotte.
Yeah.
My wife has her whole family down in Charlotte, but I like Greensboro because obviously, like you said, it's in such a good prime location to all the other markets and submarkets that you're a drive away, right? Like a couple hours away or an hour away.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
No, and I agree with you totally on the asset management. That's again, that's the reason why we want to move down there, because we realize the value of being in the market, not only from managing the asset, but also the market. Hey, I know
Yeah.
that area over there, I could potentially get this rent, and I know this because we have another asset and we've been able to achieve those rents. Whereas if you're from out of town, you don't know where the good spots are. You don't know what their real rents could be. I mean, you can look in the rentals.com, but nothing like being in the market and actually knowing what you can get for those units and what the potential.
Very true. I
Well,
agree.
now with today's environment, what are some of your thoughts on folks that potentially, when they underwrite deal, they put the rents are going to continue to increase like they have over the last couple of years? Do you see that being a trend, or when you're underwriting? Because I know you have an underwriting webinars that you do. Are you guys looking more like not as aggressive with the rental increase?
Yeah, we're not that aggressive now. We look to see where the rents are currently, and if they're $200 below market, we'll factor that in. But after that, we've never forecasted any more than a 3% growth, and we go in areas where the growth has been historically double digits, and even predicted to be double digits, but I have my reservations about that. I am starting to see just now a softening of that a little bit. I'm starting to see, some pushback on that. And, when you have tenants in Class C properties, working class properties, they're really affected by the inflation that we've had over the last year or so. And look at the price of groceries. It's like, oh my God. I mean, it's really gone up. And those people in those properties, they can only handle so much rental increases. So yeah, I think there are some people that get a little too aggressive with that, 5, 6, 7%, but we keep it at 3.
Wow. Okay. No, you touch on some really good points. And to summarize a little bit of what Ed said, you definitely want to be conservative and not aggressive with today's environment. And of course, you having so much experience, you get to really see what's going on. You get to study the market. And also another thing that you mentioned is study the markets, right? Study the markets that you're going to go into and see what the real potential could be. I think Nashville is one of the markets that we were looking at before, and I don't think I believe I seen some report that the rents are not growing like they were projecting, or they're not increasing like they were projecting. So that's really interesting. Now, I know we touched this on this a little bit, but I wanted to go back to it. I know you mentioned you're going to be wanting to focus in the North Carolina market. What are some of your thoughts on kind of what's been going on in the Midwest? I know you've also invested in the Midwest. Do you see that continuously happen as kind of time goes by? Because I think the Midwest has gotten a lot of attention over the last couple months. I know you've invested in the Midwest. What were some of your thoughts on the Midwest in some of these markets in the Midwest?
Well, yeah, the Midwest is there's a lot of good markets there. The only one I'm really in is in Northwest Arkansas, if you want to call that Midwest. But I know there's some great markets in Indianapolis, Columbus, Ohio. A lot of good markets there. I am fighting the urge of chasing markets all over the place, and I'm going to be staying put for the next few years in the North Carolina market.
Okay. Now, as you mentioned that, just to kind of follow up on that, what have you learned, I would say, over the last couple of years in terms of having properties, all over, as opposed to, like, let's say, like you said, North Carolina, now you're going to be laser focused in that market. What do you think are some of the advantages of that? I know we might have touched on it, but, just want to hear your perspective.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the reasons that I'm spread out a bit is, I have partnered with, many different people, and, I've partnered with other property managers that are managing the property. To me, that's pretty important, is to, if you could be vertically integrated, meaning you have your own property management company that you control, you're going to be able to control the expenses a lot better, and also the income. So on the 22 properties that I've had, we've already sold 7, so that leaves about 15. And probably little over half of those are self-managed, and those fare the best. On some of the other property, I think altogether I've probably fired about 5 or 6, maybe 6 property managers, and because they're not doing a good job for us, they're not doing what they said they were going to do, and part of the problem is that as owners, we are pushing them to give us better and better rates, and as a result, something's got to give. So 5%, how about 4%? So yeah, when we do that, I guess something's got to give, and they're running lean and mean, and a lot of things get overlooked, and nobody's going to run the property better than somebody in your own company, let's say.
Yes.
So that's the direction I'm going, is to bring property management in-house, and also everything else: construction, unit turns, landscaping, everything.
No, that's really cool. And what's interesting about that is that me and John actually had the same thought process, because, as you know, we're trying to immigrate to the US and one of the ways is to buy a business, right? And when we were looking at different businesses, property management came up as one of the options. And I said, well, that's interesting, because we already are in the business, and like you mentioned, if you can integrate it or have it in-house, you have the same materials, the contractors know what you're doing, everybody's kind of on the same page. Whereas I know a lot of operators, that's one of the biggest issues, is the property management, and having to fire them, kind of like you mentioned, right? You're trying to negotiate with them, right? But if you have it in-house, that's just extra. I don't think so much more for the income of the business. It does generate income, but I think, kind of like you mentioned, to be able to have the control, and then you integrate it with the construction company. Now, would you say you have to get to a certain size in order to kind of be able to do that? Starting out, if you started both at the same time, like property management and syndication, do you think that would have been a challenge, or do you think now where you are, it's the perfect time?
Yeah, I think where I'm at, it's a good timing. I mean, you're going to get different answers depending on who you talk to, but for me to start a management company, basically all I need is a regional manager type of person that could be, and that person, if you had to pay a salary, it's going to be somewhere between 100 and 150,000. So, I did the math one time, and it came up to like, I looked at the asset management fees on the properties based on 2% asset management fee, and I figured out we need 743 property units to afford a property manager. But there are ways, like we're doing it right now. We're using a hybrid approach. So we have this woman who's got 20 years experience as a regional manager, and she will take on one property at a time with us for a small fee that's much less than having a regular property management do it. And then we would have our own back office and do all the bill paying and all that. Yeah, I don't mind doing that, or having our team do that. I just don't want to be interfacing with the tenants. I want somebody who knows, who loves doing that and is good at that. So we may go with that hybrid approach. We are initially going to be bringing on construction and unit turns and landscaping right off the bat. I have a team of, I said I have 2 employees, but when we move down there, I'm going to have 4 employees. And they're going to take care of the construction and unit turns.
That's awesome. And I've been here quiet in the back, and we have been really enjoying and learning your experience and your knowledge in real estate. I wanted to shift from property management and the analyzing property management and the operations that go in property management. I wanted to shift over to exploring your role as a mentor in the commercial real estate, and how has that been for you?
Well, it's something that I do love to do, and it's not about the money, because I probably started out doing it for free. Now I get paid for it, but yeah, I do love it, and especially when I see people that I've mentored go on and be very successful. I've had several students that have probably gone on and done bigger and better things than I have, and that makes me feel good. To see that, for sure, because I'm not only helping my family, but I'm in a way helping other people's families too.
Very meaningful. That gives purpose to what you're doing, and it gives you, I'm sure it gives you a fulfillment. I know Rod talks a lot about that. So wow, that's really interesting. And then also, kind of as we're on that, Ed, tell the audience a little bit about what are the weekly underwriting that you do, workshop that you help with. I know a lot of folks in our space that may be listening, they may be used to underwriting, a 2-unit, a 4-unit, maybe a 20-unit, but the ones that the workshops that you hold, what kind of deals are you underwriting, just for the listeners to learn about that?
Well, there's a few underwriting workshops out there. I do it differently, and the way I do it is maybe so I started it for my students as a way of having them present a deal on a small group, on a Zoom call, and then myself and anybody else in the group could ask questions and pick apart the underwriting. But it's grown to people outside of my students. So that's the way I run it. I don't actually do the underwriting. I just let people present their underwriting, and then we ask questions and pick it apart.
I like that. Okay.
It forces people to do the work. I don't want people just to come onto my Zoom and just kind of with some popcorn and a soda and kind of watch me underwrite a deal. I want them to to kind of go through it themselves,
Well, and what's interesting about that is that it actually forces them to, it puts them in that position where an investor or somebody else might look at the underwriting and ask questions. So you guys are asking, I'm sure, similar questions. So it prepares them when they're presenting deals in front of investors.
Yeah. And, I kind of set it up so the format is the same. And you don't have to be an expert, obviously, to present the deal. You just have to be able to, underwrite the deal ahead of time and then come on there. And, and I just ask the people, the format is, tell us how you found the deal. Did you find it through a broker, direct to seller? What do you like about the market? And then what did you like about the deal? What is the business plan? All of these things before you get into the underwriting, and there you have it.
And I wanted to highlight the value of learning from an experienced professional like yourself in the multifamily sector. And can you just touch up on the value of having an experienced professional like yourself as a mentor, as a coach?
Yeah, and also just kind of to add to that, if you could share a little bit to the audience, if you did get a mentor when you jumped into the bigger multifamily space, and how has that shifted your growth?
Yeah, so in the beginning, I just thought I'll go out there and I'll wing it, and that's why I did it for 35 years and didn't really get all that far if you look at it, and where I've gotten in the last 6 years has been, much more than that first 35 years. But the biggest thing that I do for my students is keep them focused. And it sounds like such a simple thing, and it really is. It's a simple thing. But when you go out and, you listen to podcasts and you read books and you go to events, your head is getting spun around so many different ways. I got, I got multifamily, I got industrial, I got mobile home parks, I got storage units, I got senior living, and I want to do all of them. And I want to raise capital and I want to find deals. And, you're just going to, burn out if you try to do all that stuff. So it's like having a list of things to do and you got 100 things on the list and you wind up not getting anything done. So it's really staying focused. And, to me, the difference between a mentor and a coach, I don't know if this is, the dictionary version, but to me, a mentor is somebody who's done what you want to do. And a coach may not have done that. They're book smart, and they I use the words interchangeably, but that's deep down, that's what the difference is. So, if I'm, suggesting something to you, it's probably because, I got some pain points behind it. There's a reason why I tell people or suggest to people. I only suggest, people make their own decisions, obviously, but when I'm looking in markets, there's a reason why I look at 100,000 population. And I learned that reason by making the mistake. And the mistake that I made was I bought 101 units in a market where there was only 39,000 people, and there were many things good about it. They had a housing shortage, so we kept raising the rents and all that. That was good. That was the good part, right? But the bad part was when we lost our maintenance guy on the day we took over, he left. It took us 8 months to find a new one that had HVAC experience. Now, luckily, coincidentally, the property manager that we kept on, the on-site guy, also was HVAC certified, so that helped us out. Plus, we were doing a lot of CapEx improvements, so we had a team there, our own construction guys, and they helped out with the routine maintenance. Now, when it came to HVACs, they didn't know that, but then a year and a half later, that on-site property manager left. And, 4 months went by and we couldn't replace him. I had 2 other partners on the deal. They went in there and they managed it. And then we sold it. We did very well. But my point is that skilled labor is hard to find in a smaller population.
Absolutely.
We actually very, very, very interesting that you say that. We experienced something very similar here in Canada, where we invested up north, where it's a small community. We got a good price per unit multifamily property, and we had all types of issues, from couldn't find property managers, couldn't find tenants, couldn't find people to replace anything, because the town is so small, so it doesn't have those tradesmen, or the ones that are there, they're not good, unfortunately. So that's really interesting. And something else that you touch on, which you said, keep focus, and I think that's, like you said, it's so simple, but yet it's so to the point. When we started in the multifamily space, we were doing wholesaling. That's how we kind of got by the active income and so on. But once we went laser focused, and that's kind of part of the reason why we started this podcast, and also the webinars, the meetups, because like you say, you got to be laser focused, and people got to know what exactly is it that you do. Not like, oh, you're doing Airbnb, but you're also doing multifamily, and you're doing flips, and you're doing all this. They're not going to really understand what your true value is in terms of what your specialty is. So I think that's really interesting that you mentioned that. John, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I wanted to add, Ed, what do you think your strongest skill is as a GP?
As a GP, well, as a GP, again, I have to go back to the troubleshooting. I guess my life experience, from being in the Navy, right, and then also. One of my jobs out of the Navy was a manufacturing, electronics, and it was all about just, following systems. I'm a big systems guy, and maybe it was my 35 years of self-managing. I'm not sure what it was, but that whole combination, makes me, I think, to pat myself on the back, it makes me probably, even if I'm not the lead asset manager, I do contribute a lot on the asset management team. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think you're a bit of a hybrid, because you have so many skills that you bring to the table, both underwriting, like you mentioned, loan guarantor, you have asset management skills. I'm sure you could easily have a conversation with a broker. So you can basically do all the different parts. Of course, you leverage other people's times and other people's resources to do what you want in that specific deal. But I think you're definitely a bit of a hybrid. No, that's awesome, man. We definitely appreciate you. We're just going to shift a little bit. We just wanted to ask some actual personal questions. Starting with, I know you mentioned you've been married with your spouse. You've been married for quite some time, 43 years. I've been married 5 years, so I just wanted to personally ask you, what would you say are some of the secrets to your longevity, and no, honestly, just some and any tips that you can throw my way.
Well, geez, it'll be 44 years in a couple of weeks here, but
that's incredible.
We give each other our own space and respect. I don't know what the secret is. I was just lucky, I think,
No, I appreciate that.
We always discuss. Actually, it was my wife's idea to I would have never dragged her down to that property to live there. She was all for it. Now that's, wow. I don't know, kind of crazy, but I guess she's a special person. That goes to show you that definitely a lot of women wouldn't do that, that's for sure. Yeah, I think it's, communications, is the thing there.
Okay. No, I appreciate that. And then just the last thing we wanted to ask you here, we want to talk a little bit about your hobbies. I know, I might have commented on your Facebook when you were going hiking, and I know you like hiking, sailing, and spending quality time with family and friends. Tell us a little bit about the hiking that you went on, and I know you were raising some capital. Tell us a little bit. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so last year, we went on this hike around Lake Tahoe, 170 miles, 9-day hike. And actually I brought my daughter, one of my daughters came with me. She was the only woman on the team. Wow. And my son-in-law, not the one married to that daughter, but I have 3 daughters.
Okay.
So, we raised like $186,000 on that. Then, would I ever go on another 9-day hike? Probably not. I love hiking, but that was just like, too much.
Wow, that's incredible.
But they went, those 2, part of my team, they went this year for the same charity. It's for homeless veterans. That's the charity. And they build like these tiny homes for veterans. And they went to Grand Canyon this year. It was a 1-day affair, and raised some money for that. So that's something that we kind of latched onto. It seemed like a good cause. Veterans in this country have gotten the short end of the stick for so many years. It's sickening, especially when they have like one of the highest suicide rates. So here they are fighting for a country, and then they come back, and then then they have all these problems, and they fall into cracks, and then they go homeless, and so that's our give back.
No, that's very meaningful, and you addressed, there is a big issue with what's going on right now, and it's really good that you're able to help the cause. And now I wanted to ask you a little bit, kind of just touch base on that 9-day hike. What were some of the the mindset going through that? Because I've been I don't know if you listen to David Goggins. I've been listening to a lot of David Goggins.
Yeah.
And I've listened to all his books, and I know he goes through a lot of races. But the mindset that goes when you're in that space. I mean, tell us a little bit about maybe the.
All right, I gotta be a little transparent here. Okay, so 12 people signed up, only 9 people started, and only 4 people made it the complete way.
Wow.
I bailed out a couple days out of the goodness of my heart, because I knew I was going to drag the rest of the team down. I mean, we were hiking like 16 hours a day. It was like 20 miles a day. Elevation changes of 3,500 feet. The middle of June, like my daughter, she fell in a snowbank up to her hips. We had to pick her up out of in the middle of June,
Oh my gosh.
So anyways, I think about 5 people got hurt, only 1 to the point where they had to leave. But yeah, we did have one David Goggins, I think, in our crew. We had 2 ultra marathon runners.
Wow.
I'm the oldest by far, the most out of shape. So it was, I really had to push myself.
That's incredible. Congratulations. Most people wouldn't even dare to do something like that. So that's incredible.
Yeah.
Ed, we wanted to ask another fun question here. If you could invest in real estate anywhere in the world without any limitations, where would it be and why?
Anywhere in the world?
Without limitations.
I never thought about it like that. Anywhere in the world. I don't know. Probably probably in the Bahamas or something, some exotic place.
Somewhere tropical.
Tropical, sure.
Go ahead, John.
No, I was saying somewhere tropical and hot.
Yeah.
And then the other fun question that we have, just the last question here, Ed. Obviously, we've talked a lot about your professional journey and accomplishments, which are just tremendous. But now it's time for a fun question. If you were to start in a real estate themed reality TV show, what would it be called? What would it be called, and what would be the premise?
Oh boy, let's see. What would it be called, and what would be the premise? I would have to say the horror stories of multifamily. Everybody's got their stories, like incredible stories that nobody would believe.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, I got some whoppers, and what would it be called? Yeah, I guess
the horror movies,
horror stories of multifamily.
Yeah, horror stories of multifamily, exactly.
No, we really appreciate that, Ed, and
be a pretty good show.
I would watch it, that's for sure. But no, Ed, we appreciate your time. That's pretty much it for the show. I hope our listeners have gotten tremendous value. I know I have. I have like 3 pages of notes that I wrote. So we really thank you, Ed, for being on the podcast, sharing your insights and experience in the multifamily real estate syndication. For our listeners that may want to connect with you, whether maybe you join your webinars or your monthly meetups that you have in Long Island, or even just connect with you, what's the best way for folks to connect? I know we will attach like your social medias, but what is the best way for the folks to reach out to you?
Yeah, the best way is like in that logo right there, givemeshelterequity.com, and you can get all the stuff there, Facebook, LinkedIn, all those different links. You could set up a call, anything like that.
Perfect. Awesome. Yeah, we'll make sure to add those to the show notes here. And again, guys, this is episode 5 with our special guest, Ed. Ed, thank you again for being here. And for anybody else listening, don't forget to join our newsletters, our webinars, and our monthly meetups. And stay tuned with the upcoming podcast. Thank you so much, Ed, for being here.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ed.
Cheers.